Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. Have you ever felt used by somebody? I think that happens a fair amount in our culture. It's actually happened historically throughout the history of the world. People use other people for their own benefit. Recently, I was having a conversation with a person and we went back and forth, and the person was kind of making a demand or taking a stand on a certain issue. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, I think I'm getting caught in the middle of this issue, and I didn't like it. And I was feeling like this person was trying to use me in order to gain access to what they wanted. And I quickly got out of that middle as fast as I could, and I was glad for that. But friends, often in our culture, and I'm sure I've done it inadvertently, maybe directly, I don't know, but to others, we end up using people in order to gain, and that happens in politics, it happens in the marketplace, it happens in the office. A coworker or an employee, we end up trying to use them in order to advance our own position or whatnot. And the scriptures, particularly the Old Testament, of course the New Testament does as well, but in the Old Testament, and even more particular where we are in our Bible reading here in Deuteronomy chapter 25, we read how God over and over warns against and protects against the exploitation of other people for one's own personal benefit. And I want to bring us today in our daily devotional just to one verse, Deuteronomy 25 verse 4. It's an evocative verse. It's actually sort of provocative. I mean, it's kind of neat, and it really conjures up an image here as we read it that helps us to understand why and how we must be careful to avoid using others for our own benefit. It says this, Deuteronomy 25, verse 4, "You shall not muzzle an ox when it is treading out the grain." Of course, oxen were used as work animals in antiquity, in the ancient times. And so an ox would walk around the grain, he would tread it out, they would use it for their agricultural purposes. And for many cultures, particularly many Near Eastern cultures, animals were completely disregarded as being important. They would use an animal however they wanted in order for their own benefit. But here in the law, God says to the people, look, don't take advantage of an animal inappropriately. Of course, we're allowed to kill animals for our food, but God says don't muzzle an ox. Don't put something on it that's restrictive to it while it's acting in benefit towards you. Don't be mean to an ox. Don't be unjust to it. And friends, the argument is that if God has that heart for an animal, a work animal, how much more does He have for His people? And of course, everywhere in the Old Testament law, we see concern for the sojourner and the widow and the wife who's being inappropriately exploited by her husband, all these things. Friends, the scripture teaches us that we're not to muzzle an ox when it's treading out the grain. That's Old Testament law, but you know what? That's confirmed in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians 9 and elsewhere. And Paul uses this passage in reference to one who's working for the Lord. They say, don't muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. If somebody is serving the Lord, a worker is worth his wages. And so the teaching there is, look, support those who are serving the Lord as they serve you, as they're ministers of the gospel. And don't exploit them. Don't take from them unnecessarily. Now, it doesn't say that you're to make the ministers of the gospel rich. It doesn't mean that they have special privileges monetarily. But it does mean that we're not to take advantage of each other inappropriately. And so let me ask you, in your comings and goings, in your dealings in the marketplace, with your family, in your neighborhood, wherever you are, is there ever an instance where you're taking advantage of somebody else? Bring that to the Lord. Check yourself with that and ask the Lord, rather than to have you taking advantage of another person, ask the Lord to make you an agent of blessing for that person. Friends, that's what I want to be. I want to be an agent of blessing to those around me, and I want that for all of us. Friends, I think that's what Scripture teaches. And so do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. Let's not take advantage of the ox nor of the people that God has us interacting with. God bless you, friends. Have a great day, and Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.